Here, my name is Markus Thiel. I'm a professor in politics and international relations at the Green School of International Public Affairs here at Miami, at FIU, and I'm also the director of the EU Germany Center of Excellence here at FIU that we have. So it is my great pleasure from now for the next, whatever, we have 50 minutes or so, to have four big personalities as well as political dignitaries here that we collaborate very closely, very productively, and I just want to say thank you because you've consistently, your governments have consistently supported the work of the EU Center here at FIU, and so we really do appreciate your support. And the goal is for that Consular Roundtable to provide you with an insight of sort of national perspectives when trying to create a common EU foreign policy, right, of 27 different member states. You can imagine having 27 cooks in the kitchen, right? So I would hope that we hear from them their priorities, their national priorities, and how they may align, or maybe where there may be tensions with creating common search for consensus in EU foreign policy, making common European priorities, right? So let me just quickly introduce each consul general, and then they get a few minutes to talk, and so that we have actually some time for you to ask questions or comments. To my right hand is Christofer Burger. He's the Consul General of the Federal Republic of Germany, and he has been in that post since August 2023. Seems like he's been here already much longer. He previously served as spokesperson to Foreign Ministers Annalena Baerbock, the current German Foreign Minister, and Heiko Maas, the previous one. And he held diplomatic posts in Nicaragua, Iraq, and also he was seconded to the State Department, U.S. State Department Office of the Special Presidential Envoy to defeat ISIS during the Trump administration. He holds an MA in Islamic Studies and Economics from the Free University Berlin. That being said, thank you very much for being here, and we're sharing the next few minutes of sort of German priorities for EU.
Thank you very much. So, since the sort of overarching theme of our conference today is decentering EU foreign policy, obviously I want to say that is not an end in itself. At the end, our foreign policy objectives are still about our German European interests and our German European values, and there are three priority areas that I need to mention here. The first is peace and security in Europe, in our own immediate neighborhood. The European security architecture was shattered by Russia's invasion of Ukraine. So moving back to a situation where we can live in peace and security in Europe is our number one security policy objective at this point, obviously. The second priority that actually at the start of this, the current government looked like it was going to be priority number one is fighting the climate crisis, because it is in the long term the most existential threat to all of humanity. And Germany has a very ambitious agenda for green transformation. We want to become the first major industrialized country to be completely carbon neutral. We're right now at slightly above 50% renewable energies in our electricity sector. We'll be at 80% in 2030, and we want to partner with all countries in the world in order to be able to meet that sort of challenge. And sort of the overarching topic that affects both of these sectors, because it goes far beyond it, is the defense of our rules-based international order. At its core, the United Nations, but many other systems of rules and laws around it that we feel have made the world safer and can make the world more safe and prosperous in the future if we take good care of it. So what does that all have to do with decentering, and what do we need in order for that to be successful? I think there's one big elephant in the room, which is that the world is changing. Power distribution on our planet is changing. We are no longer in a bipolar world. We're no longer in a world dominated by European powers or even by the United States and the Soviet Union. And I also do not think we're moving to a world dominated by the US and China. We live in a future where there are a lot more power centers. We're already seeing that everywhere on our planet, that even major powers do not have the capacity to control and develop developments in other countries in their own immediate neighborhoods. So we believe moving to a situation of true allyship with many other nations in the world that share our values and that we have overlapping interests with is key to realizing our own interests in the future. So we do think that as Europe, we have one advantage that sort of makes it easier for us to engage with a lot of those powers. We Europeans too are middle powers, or even, as a totality could count ourselves as a middle power, which means we're too small to dominate or set the rules in the world unilaterally, and we're too big to just follow rules made by others or to just stay out of international affairs. We're in the sort of in-between where we have some influence over what happens in our neighborhood. We have some levers of power that we can use. And we also have a huge vested interest in stable international relations in a rules-based order, also as trading nations, especially Germany as a very export-oriented nation. And so I think one thing that many of these middle powers have in common is that we thrive, that we benefit from a system of rules. Very large countries are not that much, like very, very powerful superpowers are not dependent on rules because they can make their own rules, like they can enforce their own interests. Middle powers, such as many European countries, but also countries like Turkey, Indonesia, Brazil, Argentina, South Africa, Nigeria, Egypt, you name it. The G20 could be one approximation of that. Many actors with some degree of leverage, with some degree of power, who can be partners in renovating and renewing this rules-based order, but who also have a vested interest in having some degree of predictability and some degree of common rules for all. So that is why I think our conversation today about decentering is very much in line with our interests, because decentering helps us. It is not just the right thing to do in terms of justice and fairness, it is also something that helps us better understand, better listen to these actors who we want to be allies with, and whose allyship we need, and will need even more in the future. That is why we need to renew our own foreign policy instruments at a national level, but also at an EU level to be better able to engage in that sort of allyship. One instrument I really want to highlight is the EU's Global Gateways Initiative. That is one project that we're working on jointly to make it much more agile, to make it much more attuned to our own strategic objectives, rather than just sort of generalized development objectives. We feel it can be an instrument that will make the EU a much more interesting partner for our potential allies in the world to work with. So those are just a few ideas, and I think my colleagues will have a lot more to say from their national perspectives.
Thank you very much, Consul Burger. Next we have Consul General Lisette, then Breems. Thank you very much for being here. She assumed her duties as Consul General of the Kingdoms of the Netherlands also in August 2023. Began her diplomatic career with the Dutch Ministry of Foreign Affairs in 2000, holding various positions as the second secretary at the embassy in Bogota, Colombia, interestingly, because we had another Colombian guest earlier today, in London, as well as most recently as Deputy Head of Mission at the Embassy in Santiago de Chile, in Chile. She studied Communicative Arabic at the School of Oriental and African Studies at the University of London and holds a Master of Arts in Cultural Anthropology and Sociology of Non-Western Societies from the University of Leiden. With that being said, it seems like you're also a perfect candidate for this conference's topic, and I'm looking forward to hearing the next few minutes about the Dutch perspective on creating or reforming, reimagining EU foreign policies. Thank you.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much for inviting me, having the opportunity to talk to you. It's always horrible to speak after Christofer because he has such a good and well-grounded story to tell. And as you might know, us being neighbors in Europe, to a great extent, we rely on many of the topics that he has been talking about. But just to kick off from my national perspective, I wanted to. My government always does a State of the Union as well, a State of the European Union. That is in December. We look ahead, we look where Europe stands, what the challenges in the world are, and how we should confront those. And what derived from that are the main priorities for the Dutch government to pursue within the EU in order to be most effective at the international level. It's a letter to our parliament, and it's in English as well as in Spanish. So I'm very happy to provide you with the link should you be interested in that. But I'm just going to read the 4 main priorities that we see for this year to come. The first being for the EU foreign policy, a union that is working to increase prosperity and resilience and accelerates the green and digital transitions. The second being a strong geopolitical union, confidently assuming its role on the world stage. The third one is a union rooted in democracy and the rule of law, enjoined by shared values. And the fourth one is a decisive union with the ability to carry out transitions and achieve results. Now, these are all very big words, but I think to a large extent they relate to what Christofer was telling. And first and foremost, as you have been discussing, I guess, is the fact that we're living in these fast-changing power relations, and we have to relate ourselves to them. And for us Europeans, the invasion in Ukraine has really been a landmark event. It might perhaps for you seem far away. For us, it is not. It's very close. And it has highlighted first and foremost that we have to take care of our own security and defense policy and do more in step with other efforts. So that's something that we've been doing in relation to Ukraine and the support. I mean, I think that all countries on this table have been providing big amounts of humanitarian development, but also military aid to Ukraine in order for them to be successful. It has also reinforced, I think, the role of the EU itself, and von der Leyen has played a pivotal role, I think, in putting the EU on the stage and making us as influential as we could be. And last but not least, we keep doing outreach on this particular topic also to a wider audience. We do not only see it as an EU topic, we also see it as direct relevance to other publics, to the US, to Latin America, to other regions in the world. I mean, because now it's Ukraine, but the next step could well be something happening in the Indian Pacific region, for example, with Taiwan and China. Then another topic which for my government is and has always been very important relates to the trade as well as the big 2 transitions that were mentioned in this policy brief. The green transition with the Green Deal being at the center of European policy. I mean, we are very proud of that deal, and we very much support the implementation and the instruments needed in order to make that happen. But we as a small country, not even a small country, we earn 1/3 of our GDP from trade, so we very much adhere to an open, based on multilateral rule of law order in which we really can trust on one another trade partner to do what it says. And for that, we need to put our efforts in keep strengthening that rules-based order, which is very much under attack at the moment. We've seen we have to adapt also, and I wanted to light out two topics that we as a government have been particularly working on. One relates to technology. So technology, I'm the first cyber diplomat also. It's not in the bio, but I started in 2013 in this particular area. And with a thought, I mean, we've long seen that technology has been the role of engineers, of science, of economists to a certain extent. Very much believing in the openness, and the more open our research would be, the more progress, scientific progress we would make. Or for business, I mean, the more removal of trade barriers and the more complex value change we would create, the more progress that would mean to us. Now that has totally, I think, flipped around. And we have seen that happening in the world. Geopolitics has changed from cooperation to competition. And the role of tech has taken a different place in international relationships. And I think you see this happening or playing out at the moment when we talk about artificial intelligence, for example, where the EU wants to play a big role in making sure that our common values, and we find them important, also translate to professional and high-level standards in this particular area. And for that, we need people that understand what is happening, not only the technicians, not only the engineers, but in particular also people like you sitting here, and people like us at the table, in order to understand what's at stake and look for ways in which we can guarantee or keep guaranteeing that shared values that we have keep being on the front place. I can talk a little bit about that later. I will leave it for now. But for cyber, we did the same, and we've seen a huge involvement of different actors, being the UN, but also big players like Russia and China. And there again, also, it's incredibly important that we all understand what these discussions are really about, and try to implement to the extent we think is important for our policies. Now, in human rights, I mean, I think that you've said enough. We keep being, or you hope we can keep being, the judicial capital of the world. It remains very close to our hearts. We, together with the Germans, adhere to a foreign feminist policy. You've been talking about it, I think, this morning. So any questions on that, happy to answer them as well. But for now, I think I will pass the mic to, well, Markus, you first.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. So next we have Dr. Michele Mistò. He is the Consul General of the Consul General of Italy in Miami. So he was also appointed in August 2023. So benvenuti to FIU. If you had, I don't know if you had a chance to come already, right? We were talking about an early visit. He attended the University of Trieste, where he obtained a degree in International Diplomatic Sciences in 1999, and then later got postgraduate degrees from the University of Geneva and the University of Lausanne, including his Master Legum in International Economic Law and EU Law. He had a number of postings, as you can see, but I'm not going to go through all of them in the interest of time. Just to say that I think one of your previous last postings before Miami seems to have been as consular of the embassy in Moscow, and then the first consular, right, in Moscow, Russia. So it's probably interesting for me to hear something from that angle and from your experiences as well. And last but not least, he received a number of national accolades and commendations, including the Knight of the Order of Merit of the Italian Republic. So with that being said, thank you very much for being here, and please, the next few minutes are for you.
Thank you so much, Professor. Thank you so much to all of you for being here, listening to us. Speaking after my colleagues, it's always a pleasure because I can see really how many deeply entrenched values unite us all, because we have the same, moral and philosophical priorities, even though we may articulate them in a different way according to the power politics in our own countries. But the background, the premise for all of this, for our international relations actions is really very similar, quite identical, I would say. The professor mentioned my short bio, and the very fact that my last posting was the latest posting was in Russia. This was the demonstration of how important it is that we remember, as a European members countries, that we have values to uphold, we have values to defend, that we share with the United States. I was expelled by the Russian president as a counter-retaliation to the Western countries and the European Union countries, which had expelled the Russian spies from their respective embassies in their countries. We could see really it was quite a significant rite of passage, I would say, in my diplomatic career, because I grew into adulthood as far as my profession was taken into consideration, because we were moving from a situation where everything was perfect. I was the first counselor for cultural collaboration. Everybody in Russia loved Italian culture, sponsored us. It was fantastic. I didn't have to worry about money and funding, as all of us, we do when we want to organize something abroad. I was really bestowed honor upon honor by regime. And then all of a sudden it changed. We were detecting signals, of course, warnings, but I could see how the civil society was affected in the few months that I stayed there before my expulsion. Well, this is just to give you the moral, let's say, background for all our actions, foreign actions, and for the way that Italy interprets its role together with its European friends, its European partners, as far as foreign policy is concerned. To give you something more of an Italian flavor of our approach to international politics. Much as my colleagues have pointed out, we share security concerns. We think that our action must be take into consideration the security threats that are emerging throughout the world in this multipolar world, where also the Western Alliance has to stand out as a beacon of democracy and values in this fragile international political ecosystem. That has always been the Italian position in all the negotiations inside the European Union and outside of the European Union. Our foreign minister has recently remarked the fact that we are always pushing for more and more coordination in the defense system based upon a legal approach with respect to the international law, the international legal order, but always more and more coordination in the defense sector among the European countries, so as to reinforce also our position within NATO. Because better European coordination, the objective of getting to a European army, to our European shared military priorities, would help strengthen also our position inside NATO. And this is one of our top concerns as far as security is concerned. Of course, Italy has got a very peculiar position in Europe, also geographically. This is always important. And we project our sensitivity, this is the geography, towards our partners inside and outside the European Union. Italy has always been insisting upon the fact that the European Union must reorient itself also to take into consideration the problems of the Mediterranean and of the Middle East, especially the Mediterranean, of course. Italy is a Mediterranean country, together with Spain, France, Greece, and other countries which are not yet into the European Union. We want a common security approach to the problems into the Mediterranean. For example, a stronger border and integration control what's going on in the Mediterranean, because it's a sea of opportunities, but also it's a sea of concerns and of problems. The European Union must stand close as a whole to its European members, to its member states who share this huge frontier, which is a huge opportunity. We have always been very consistent that also the global south has got to be taken into consideration. Because if you start collaborating, if you provide consistent collaboration to the Mediterranean countries, you've got to realize that most of migration routes come from Africa, and they are already investing in Europe, especially southwards. We have to have a common policy vis-à-vis those countries, a policy based upon collaboration, consistent collaboration, solidarity, and not exploitation. That's why we have been trying to identify priorities of bilateral collaboration inside a European Union perspective with most African countries. You may be aware of the fact that we launched the so-called Monnet plan. It's a significant piece of history in our ideology, I would say, in a very friendly way. Because Enrico Mattei was the founder of a giant oil company, Italian oil company, and it was one of the few European oil companies that in the 50s and 60s were able to compete with the US oil companies. And it was so successful, this company, in creating alliances and forms of collaboration with countries in the Middle East that was considered one such as a quasi-sovereign entity by itself. But all of their economic results were brought about by a vision of shared prosperity with the countries where we were, making business with oil, as far as oil was concerned. So we wanted to submit, to put forth another plan of action, which wants to identify common priorities between African countries in Italy in a common, perspective, sharing objectives of collaboration, of mutual benefit. Because we have to recall the fact that, especially my country, is witnessing a demographic winter. It is to say, we need more young people, we need more immigrants, and we need to check the flow of these people into the European Union market, which is a common one. We don't have to see borders suddenly being, made difficult to go through because there is one domestic issue in one country and one domestic issue in another country. We have to take care of these people, and European Union members in the Mediterranean cannot be left alone. And we have always stressed the priority that this has to be on the continent as a whole. If we want to articulate an international policy which is truly based on human rights. And I would like to finally talk about one thing which is very, very important for Italy, which is much as Germany and the Netherlands and other European countries, but also France, an export economy. We export, we get from the exports around 40% of our GDP. And the Italian GDP is tantamount to the Russian GDP, so it's something quite substantial. In order to protect our well-being, we have to be able to stand up for our values. We don't accept a relativist approach in international politics, just as we don't accept a relativist approach to moral values inside and outside. That's why we have to uphold our common values, our shared backgrounds in the European Union, all conscious of the fact that there are some differences, and we have got to stand up for these values in the international arena. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for this overview. And last but certainly not least, we have the French Consul General, Monsieur Raphaël Trapp. But before I very quickly say a few words about his biography, I just want to recognize the presence of Mr. Michael Curtis here, who is, thank you very much for coming back, the Deputy Ambassador of the EU delegation, who gave a great keynote yesterday. So thanks for being here. Mr. Raphaël Trapp, Consul Trapp, took over as Consul General of France in September 2022, so I guess you were one of the great eminences here, right? Already. An alumnus of the Faculty of Law at the University of Paris and the Institute of Administration. He joined the Ministry of Foreign Affairs already in 2003. He was in 2009 appointed as legal advisor at the Human Rights Unit of the Permanent Mission of France in Geneva at the United Nations, and then took over as head of human rights on the mission, especially working on Syria. And in 2013, he joined the French embassy in Rabat, Morocco, as first secretary of the Political Affairs Unit. In 2019, finally, he was appointed deputy permanent representative of France to the United Nations and the International Organization in Vienna, and worked on, among other things, nuclear Iranian file, space affairs, and combating cybercrime. So you have quite a multilateral portfolio already. So thank you very much for being here and for sharing France's preferences and priorities.
Of course, Markus, thank you. First of all, I would like just to give you some background regarding the European external action. First of all, to say it's a bit provocative, but just to remind that full sovereignty, that the European member states have full sovereignty over their respective foreign policies. But of course, they decided to act together to face common geopolitical challenges and within the umbrella of the European Union. And you may know that the external action of the European Union is quite young, in fact. It has been institutionalized only in 1993 by the Maastricht Treaty. And a few years after, 4 years after, precisely, the EU created an official head of the diplomacy, like a foreign minister for the European Union. He is called the High Representative. And only in 2009, the European External Action Service has been created. So you see, it's a very young diplomacy, and it's an incremental diplomacy, and we are getting better and better years after years. You have also to understand how it works. As I said, the European countries are part of the UN external action, of course, and this is a lot of negotiation, mainly in Brussels. There is a lot of working groups, thematic, geographic, where representatives like us of our countries negotiate the position of the European Union. And at the end, there is the gathering of the Council of Foreign Affairs. There are conclusions of the Minister for Foreign Affairs of the European member states that decide on actions to be taken on the international ground for the European Union, and of course on different issues, but also on development, also on humanitarian head, yes. So just for you to know that it's really a state-driven process, of course, but within this, of course, the European Union and its representatives counseled a lot the civil society just to forge their policies, but also to implement them. So with the aim, of course, to associate as much as possible those representatives and the NGOs, and not only NGOs of the European Union, of course, but NGOs of the different countries when those policies will be implemented. Deciding on European actions is also giving the possibility to defend, yes, European values, but not only European values. We have to defend also, as my colleague said, the international law. So we were talking about women's rights this morning. So when we protect and we promote human rights abroad, we are not protecting human rights values, we are protecting international law and mainly UN conventions on the fight against discrimination of women, for instance. So with this, we protect those norms in the international fora. We do that also at the bilateral level, and we can use European financement instruments to help ground NGOs also to implement those rights on the ground. Regarding decentering the European policy, I would like to mention the conference on the future of Europe, which was a very long process. During 1 year, there has been a lot of consultations within all countries of the European Union, just to ask European citizens what are their recommendations for the European Union to make it better, of course internally, but also abroad. And after 1 year of consultations, the head of states gathered and received the recommendation from the civil society. And we are in the process of implementation, of course not of all recommendations, but few of them. But the feeling that we had with that conference is there is a demand within Europe of more dependency, more sovereignty, and on different levels. On defense levels, on energy, especially to fight climate change, on alimentation, and also more sovereignty and dependency for our democratic systems and for our informational systems. Let me just talk about the defense, because this has been mentioned, but of course it has been a shock for us, the invasion of Ukraine by Russia, and we believe that with our European partners we have to be better prepared on the defense side. So for you to know that the common security and defense policy has been part of the common foreign and security policy, so the external EU policy for long. But at that time, the idea was to enable the European Union to use military and civilian resources to respond to international crises. You may not know, but currently the EU is present on 3 continents with 22 civilian or military missions. But after the invasion, we felt that, and it was of course prepared before the invasion, but for the past few years, we felt that it was important for the EU also to better protect itself. And this is the reason why we have worked together on a specific document called the Strategic Compass for Security and Defense. And this is the first document that provides a shared assessment of our strategic environment and that set goals to improve the Europeans' ability to respond to emergency situations, also to enhance the EU ability to anticipate threats, and to increase, as Michele said, investments in key military industries. But of course we want to do that in working in partnership, and especially with NATO, which is still a pillar, of course, of the European defense. I mentioned this because, as you may know, France is often pointed on the finger with its position on NATO, but this is perfectly clear for us that NATO is part of this thinking about the defense of Europe. So more dependency, more independency, more independency and more sovereignty of Europe. I mean, this is the goal that we see for the future years.
Fantastic, thank you very much. Right on time. So that leaves us a few minutes for some questions that you can ask to any of the panelists or all of the panelists. I do have one too, but I want to let you go first. So please, if you have a question, Go to the mic. Oh yeah, go to the mic. Or do we have our student assistants here? Can you just quickly run to the mic and please hand it to Professor Bike here, since she's not that good on foot right now, right?
I'll get better.
Thank you. Hopefully so. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. I would like to thank all the Consul Generals. It was really a lot to think about. But I have a question for the German Consul General, which he mentioned something which the others didn't mention. That was on decentrally, making alliance with many countries as possible. Can you dwell on it a little and give a concrete example what you're talking? Thank you.
Certainly. So, as I said, basically the starting point for that is the idea that we are moving to a more multipolar world in which there are many more actors that together shape our world order. And to give you concrete examples, I mean, the topic that you have heard is at the top of the agenda for all of us right now is Russia's invasion of Ukraine. So in that context, for instance, Turkey played a very crucial role when it came to facilitating exports of grain through the Black Sea. That was something where neither the United States nor China nor any other, let's say, traditional superpower, nor even the European Union as direct neighbors of Ukraine were by itself able to resolve this. The United Nations played a crucial role in it, but also Turkey, through its geography, through its own relationship with both Ukraine and China, became a crucial actor in order to be able to solve this. I think you can also talk about the influence that some leading African countries have played in this debate about the corn war that President Putin is waging. And that is just one example. So recognizing the fact that in order to be able to fulfill our own policy objectives, to live in security, to have the stable rules-based order that we want to enjoy ourselves in Europe, we're simply no longer in a situation where we, bring or try to bring good things, peace and prosperity to the rest of the world. And I remember that sort of thinking in the 1990s and the early 2000s when we thought, the West had won the Cold War, and basically a very small coalition of countries or very limited group of countries would be able to enforce a set of rules, a set of values. So we're not in that situation anymore. We need a lot more. We're a lot more dependent on the cooperation with other actors who have their own set of values, who have their own interests. We do think that our interests and values overlap to a great degree with many of these countries. And I think what's really important is to develop a policy framework that makes us a good partner to these countries, where they feel we are a fair partner to them, possibly even a preferred partner, although I think one crucial element of this is to not make them choose, to not say you're either with us or you're with the other team. We want to be a partner that you can choose to engage on the range of issues where it suits your own interests, and that will still leave you free to build an infrastructure project with another country, or to work on cybersecurity with a third. So I think that is the direction we're moving into. As I said, we feel a global gateway is one set of tools that can help us become that sort of partner. But it's a much, much broader debate, and I think many of the discussions that we had this morning can light some of the way towards that goal.
Thank you. Is there another question? Anyway, please, yes, thank you. If you could just get the mic to.
I don't know who this question is directed to, but I thought of, because you guys discussed the changing power dynamics, we're no longer in this bipolar arrangement as we were in the Cold War. But I'm thinking of what is the viability of a united European future if we've already seen disparities of power between, the countries that all of you represent on this table. And also, I think it was Thucydides who said, justice is determined. Justice is only really a word that is relevant between powers or states who have equivalency of power. So I guess, my question is, where does the disparity of power end, and how does the European Union deal with the changing power relationships in the future?
I really don't want to monopolize, just one very quick remark on the idea of power disparities between European nations. And there was a former Belgian Prime Minister, Henri Spaak, who said there is only two kinds of countries in Europe: small countries and countries that haven't yet realized that they're small. And I think that goes to power disparities. Yes, Germany may be the largest country within the European Union, but at a global scale, we are in exactly the same league as the Netherlands or Italy or France or any other European country. Too big to stay out of things, too small to make others do what we want by ourselves. Sorry, that's...
No, maybe to add, I think one of the important elements is how you look at these power relations, and whether or not you have a winner-takes-all mentality or not, or whether you are able to think in coalitions and giving and taking. And I think that, at least when I'm speaking for my country, is very much the way that we govern our country. We have to, although there is a winner in elections, for example, always, in the end we have to enter into negotiations and into coalition making in order to advance. And I see the European, to a huge extent, also functioning the same way. And I mean, it means at times that it takes an awful long time to come to that common position, but it does so in a way that we respect each other. And in the end, I think it makes us more a more stronger entity also to talk to. And I think, I do believe that with everything that has happened in the world, that the EU as such has come out stronger. And there's way to improve ourselves in our way to engage with others. I agree to that. I think we're at the starting point of this stronger engagement with those different actors. But we see it as a key in order to advance and take into account our own interests, but also the interests of others. And one example maybe of what we've been working on in Chile, for example, as EU, very much relates, for example, to the energy transition. And Chile being a relatively small country, talking to this big entity, EU, who is very interested in the green hydrogen. But at the same time sees the value of doing that in a fair way. So just transitions are key to, I think, what we're doing at the moment. And that means that we're not just like entering into relationships to take things out for our own use, but we really see the merits of investing also in those societies as equal partners, so that they do not just export their copper to a certain big country in Asia, but really get something into return. So I think that is kind of a way in we hopefully can advance and bring a bit more prosperity to the world. That was my day.
Yes, I would like to add because I think your answer, your question was very interesting because pointed some methodological problems. Of course, as my colleagues remarked, we realize that in Europe, size matters because we are small. But we do cultivate a very positive approach, I think, methodologically speaking, as you were saying. Because I think that we, even though we are small countries and it's a small continent, we have always been able, and I'm confident we will always be able, to express a lot more than what we are from the figures point of view. I think that all of you can agree that many European countries, especially Italy, are culturally superpowers. We are able to engage a lot of different audiences from all over the world and to entertain them and to invite them to join and to share our heritage, for example. Whenever I go out here in Miami, in Florida, and they're in the adjoining states and I speak to people from every walk of life, I'm really amazed at how many things US citizens know about my own country, how many things they have tasted, how many goods have bought, how many times they have been to, even to my village in Italy. Because we are able to entertain you in the best of ways. So Europe can express and give a lot. Each of us can give a lot on the international arena. Of course, then there are the hard facts in some fields, for example. We talked about defense, and I stressed the need for us to get together even more and to respond in a very coordinated way. But I think that the key to the European Union approach to the world order and the European Union approach to foreign policy is really coordinating ourselves and being able to engage in a serious and respectful dialogue, sharing our values. There will always be room for that, which means, as Lisette pointed out, not taking advantage of your interlocutors, but building upon the relationship that you can establish. And European Union countries have always been very good at this, not showing, that there is an end to dialogue. There is always the possibility of this and sharing in a mutually respectful way.
I just want to say that there is no doubt that we all of us, 27 of us, believe that we are stronger together, and this is the reason why it works inside the European Union. And we are also a superpower. We are the third largest economy altogether. We have also the first place regarding the development aid that we provide to different countries, the European Union itself and its 27 member states. But if you look at energy production, we know that we have to do better, and this is the reason why my colleagues told you about the production of green energy. And there is a strong will among EU partners to do better on this and to become more powerful. And on the military, yes, as I explained, there is also a will for us to get stronger and to better protect ourselves on the international scene. And on diplomacy, I can tell you that, for instance, in international forums, we are 27, so it means 27 votes when we do agree on a position, so it makes us strong. So we do feel that we are stronger together, and we know that we are.
Fantastic, thank you very much. On this positive note, you ended perfectly. I think it's 3 o'clock. We have to take a break because the next panel will start in about 5 minutes. So please, if you're just the next panel, stick around. But let's first give a hand of applause to our